Welcome everyone, this is David Stephen. I'm from the Center in International Cooperation at New York University. I am also a director of the Pathfinders for Peaceful, Just and Inclusive Societies and help support the Pathfinders, which is, I think most of you on the call know, is a multi-stakeholder platform for accelerating implementation of the SDG16 plus targets. This is the third in a series of calls that we've had to mobilize for the high-level political forum and now for the SDG Summit. So we had the big call back in the spring, the bigger call just before the HLPF, and this is now the biggest call as we are just a few weeks away from the summit itself. We have a growing group of partners online, and I think this is a great opportunity for us to come together as a community to reflect on where we've been and to try and maximize our opportunities at the summit. The way that we're going to structure this call is I'm going to say a few words about the framing, so looking back at the HLPF, but also forward to the summit and beyond. We're then going to hand over to Naira Costa from UNDESA, who is going to talk about the acceleration actions and the need for the summit to really be focused on the practicalities of how to implement a process of change. And Hashani from the Pathfinders will then come in and talk about some of the actual practicalities of the summit, what's planned there and how to make the most of that opportunity. We're then hoping to hear from Anand Kantaria from the SDG Action Zone, or the SDG Action Campaign, I should say, who is they're running the Action Zone at one of the partners running the Action Zone at the SDG Summit, and have been very much engaged in the bigger mobilization around all 17 SDGs. And then we hope to hear about the process around UN at 75. On previous calls, I know that we haven't always done a fantastic job of allowing enough time for interaction, so I really am going to try and make sure there is an opportunity for interaction. We have a few questions that have been sent in ahead of time, and I do urge you to get on the chat or on the email and send to Boyan at CIC, at the Pathfinders, either your wish to intervene or a question that we can inject into the process, and we'll try and give as much time for people as we possibly can. So that's the framing, and let me just start by looking at the HLPF, the road to the summit, and then the road beyond. I think we were starting preparations for the high-level political forum well more than a year before the forum itself. We had a retreat amongst partners that was organised at the Bohemian Hall, hosted by the Czech mission, with the 16 Plus Forum, the Global Alliance for Reporting Progress on Peaceful, Just and Inclusive Societies, and a number of partners that began that planning process. And I think the fact that we worked together as a community really showed off at the HLPF itself. There was an app that brought together the SDG 16 plus related side events at the HLPF, and it had more than 100 events in it, showing a real diversity of experience, of partnerships, of networks that are focusing on these practical questions of how to implement targets for peace, justice, and inclusion that we know are incredibly ambitious. I think we began to see in voluntary national reviews more coverage of SDG 16 plus, so there's clearly more to be done on that. And we had a thematic review of the goal of SDG 16 that I think showed, on the one hand, the enormous gap between our aspirations and reality, the many challenges that we face in building a peace, in building justice, and building inclusion, but also showed that practical implementation was beginning to happen, and began to talk in very concrete ways about how to make that change happen. It was commented to us by a number of the delegations that they thought that the mobilization around SDG 16 was probably the most successful of the goals under review that year. And I think it really did give us a fill-up and a sense of momentum as a community. But we always explicitly said that this should be a platform for the SDG Summit. A summit, to remind you all, where in the text of the 2030 agenda, it asks leaders to come and mobilize further actions to accelerate implementation. So a focus on actions, a clear sense of acceleration in ambition, and as part of a bigger mobilization that brings together countries from all regions and income groups, that unite governments with partners from civil society, from the private sector, foundations, academia, etc., etc. And that also reflects the need for multi-sectoral implementation to make SDG 16 plus a reality, and requires partnerships between those working on SDG 16 and those working on other goals. At the summit, and we'll hear more about this in a while, we have a registry of acceleration actions, and one of our big efforts as a community has been to try and make sure that as many actions are registered in that official registry ahead of the summit, and we're very pleased to have Naira Costa from UNDESA to explain a little bit more about the process of registration, and to tell us about how that is going and how that will feature in the summit. We also have very clear guidance for partners, both governments and non-governmental partners, about the process of registration, and we will circulate that again after this call. Secondly, at the summit, leaders are obviously the centerpiece of the summit, and there's a series of leaders dialogues on different thematic issues, and we are working with missions in New York, with capitals, and we're asking all of our partners to do the same, to reach out to countries and to ask any of our contacts there to make sure that leaders are briefed to talk about the challenges, the practical challenges of accelerating action on peaceful, just and inclusive societies. And again, we have a short briefing that outlines each of the themes for the leaders' dialogues, and in just 3 or 4 paragraphs identifies some of the critical points from the point of view of SDG 16 plus, and we're very happy to share that with anybody on that call who wants to reach out to government, or from the contacts who are on the call who work for governments in capital. And then the summit will include around the edges of it the SDG Action Zone, which we're going to hear more about from Anand in a minute, the SDG Media Zone, and a small number of high-profile events, including a reception on SDG 16 plus that Harshani will talk about in a moment. But I think it's very, very important to see the summit as the beginning of a year of mobilization. So we know that, or we expect at the summit, that the Secretary General, UN Secretary General, will use the summit as a platform to call for a decade of action on the SDGs. And we need to be ready as an SDG 16 plus community to respond immediately to that call for action. And I think we're in a good position to do that because of this work that we've done over the last year on focusing on accelerating action and on acceleration actions. We are also expecting, and we'll hear more about this, I hope in a minute, but we're also expecting that the 75th anniversary of the UN will launch a global conversation on closing the gap between our aspirations on the SDGs, on climate, on biodiversity, on the many other important international agendas, our aspirations and the reality of the trajectories that we're on. And we hope throughout the 75th anniversary to be part of that global, to bring actors together to be part of that global conversation, suggesting practical ways for how we close the gap on peace, on prevention of all forms of violence, on a shift from justice for the few to justice for all, on shifting our institutions from their current state where they're failing to deliver people's aspirations in many countries to institutions that can genuinely underpin the transformation of the 2030 agenda, and of course to the paramount challenge of tackling exclusion and inequality at a time when so many people feel locked out of their societies, but yet when the 2030 agenda promises them that they can participate fully in building a more sustainable future. So let's see the SDG Summit as an opportunity to get serious about actions, about acceleration actions, and let's use every opportunity at the summit, whether we're within the formal process or around it, to focus on actions for SDG 16 plus. But then let's respond to this call for a global conversation on closing the gap, and let's really begin to be clear over the next year about how we can have a decade of action on the SDG 16 plus targets. One final point for me. think about this summit, the first SDG Summit, the Olympics of the SDGs, these 4-yearly events where leaders come together to check on what we've done, but to set an ambition for the future. But let's also begin to work towards the second SDG Summit in 2023. Will we be able to demonstrate measurable change on the SDG 16 plus targets in 4 years' time? I think that is our big challenge, to show halfway through the agenda that this is beginning to make a real difference in the lives of people, at communities and societies in the world as a whole. So that's the framing. I'm very excited about the possibilities of what we can do over the next couple of weeks and how that we can take that into a year that runs from the SDG Summit in this September to the 75th anniversary summit in September 2020. But there's still a lot of work to do to pull together as a community to maximize those opportunities. So I'm going to pause now for any first questions or first interventions or reflections on both what we have achieved and our opportunity going forward. And I'm looking to Bojan for ones that have either come up on the chat or people who have indicated that they want to intervene.
Hi everyone, this is Boyan from Pathfinders. If you would like to make an intervention, there should be an option to raise a hand in your web browser. So please raise your hand virtually so we can recognize you and give you the floor. You're always more than welcome to make a contribution in the chat box, and we'll make sure it's noted as well.
So I've had a couple of questions come in as we've been preparing for this. So I've got a question for Eric, from Eric Kashenbuzi, who worked with CIC to review the state of preparation for the SDG 16, for all of the SDGs in terms of partnerships and platforms for implementation, back as the agenda was being agreed. And this was a piece of research on which we built the Pathfinders partnership. And he's asked a question about how we can make sure that community-based organizations, so not just the big civil society entities, are really engaged in the 2030 agenda, given that the bulk of implementation of SDG 16 plus takes place at a community level. And we've also had a question from Erwin Waller in Canada, a thought leader on violence prevention, who's just published a superb book on how we can significantly reduce all forms of violence everywhere under SDG 16.1. And he's talking about how we can get a political buy-in to prevent violent crime. The crime that is shaping many societies at the moment and that is leading to roughly 80% of the lethal violence deaths, and how we can get that political buy-in, particularly in the Latin America and the Caribbean. I think many of the panelists will reflect on these questions. This call is the beginning of an opportunity to reach out to broader networks, but we really rely very much on the umbrella networks for civil society. So we've had John Romano from TAP on previous call, and some of his colleagues, and we know that the TAP network is inviting all community organizations to register their commitments for the summit, and then to translate that into one or more acceleration actions in the registry. We have a similar effort underway from Namati, looking at the grassroots legal empowerment activists. We had a meeting on Friday looking at violence against children, and World Vision and other civil society partners are trying to reach out to both community-based organizations, but also to children themselves for leadership on this issue. And I know that Anand is going to talk about, or I hope Anand is going to talk about, not just the Action Zone, but also the Butterfly campaign that is being run to allow any individual or any small organization or big organization to make their own commitments on the SDGs. And I also think this summit is to answer Erwin's question, is a real opportunity to stand up for prevention of conflict, for prevention of urban and criminal violence, for the prevention of violence against women and children, and also for the prevention of human rights abuses and mass atrocities. And I think we can begin to build political support behind the movement to halve violence. So that's a first round. Please do come in if you've got other questions. Put your hands up. But I'm going to hand over to Naira Costa, from UNDESA to talk about the acceleration actions. And I'm really pleased that Naira's come onto this call. We've had a fantastic partnership with DESA. We had a great conference in Rome on SDG16, and we're really looking forward to this final rush, the final lap to the summit to make the most of that. Over to you, Naira.
Thank you so much, David, and thanks very much, colleagues, for joining this call and for having us here. I have to start by thanking Pathfinders and all the SDG16 community for the great mobilization in the lead up to the HLPF. And as David was saying, I saw firsthand the engagement of this community in the preparations for the Rome conference and also for the main session during the HLPF. And I can tell how you made a difference. And also this community was very instrumental in pushing the whole SDG crowd towards this call for acceleration actions. It's been very strong from the SDG16, and this has been very helpful in setting up this global process. So I'm here to talk to you a little bit about the SDG acceleration actions. I know that Bonyan will be showing you some links. So the first thing is, what is an SDG acceleration action? So the first thing is it's an initiative, it's volunteer, it's connected to the SDGs, and the focus on contributing to accelerating implementation. So basically, it is a very broad concept, but we are talking about efforts that are scaling up, that it's about a new phase. We are talking about announcements of new or enhanced policies, programs, or projects, or for instance, the major financing announcements or small financing announcements as well, because it's about the collective, not only governments, but all stakeholders coming together and committing to accelerate the implementation as a kickstart to the decade of action that David was mentioning. So we are really envisioning more, broader perspective in terms of medium to long term. We are, submissions that only talk about one workshop or a session or, a webinar. This is not necessarily an acceleration action, although you can have workshops and sessions and webinars as part of a broader perspective, that a broader initiative that will accelerate action. So who can register an acceleration action? We are looking for a more institutionalized approach in the sense that it's different from, for instance, the Act Now mobilization that it's around the climate summit, where we are talking about individuals changing their habits or processes in a way to contribute to climate change. We are talking about more institutionalized and organizations that are bringing something to the table. So it's about national governments, local and regional governments, the UN entities, other intergovernmental organizations, and stakeholders, including civil society, academia, research institutions, and other actions, either as an individual organizations or in partnerships. And then the how can this be registered? We have created a specific online platform where all registrations can be registered. This is the only way that we are submitting registrations. I think, Ponyam, perhaps, I don't know if you were showing, if you showed the screen or if the link is on the, I think I saw the link on the chat box, so colleagues can check the link. So it's pretty straightforward, I would say, the what is asked in the form, and they can be registered in the 6 official languages of the United Nations. Although there are some other languages that might come up, if we do have capacity internally, we will be reviewing other languages. This may take longer. Also, submissions that are not in English, they might take longer because this demands for mobilization of, expertise internally to review the submissions. Submissions are being revised by DESA experts, and sometimes by more than one colleague. I want to say that, and there is one thing that is very important. The submissions, they need to show a clear link to the SDGs. And this might be, you know, oh, this is common sense. Not really. Sometimes you have a very good submission that talks about thematically something that is connected to the SDGs, but you cannot read how this is responding to the SDGs, or you know, I've been doing this initiative, and because of the SDGs we are changing, or we are enhancing, or we are putting this efforts, or this is how we are changing. This is what we are looking for when we are talking about acceleration actions. And then you can see there in the website, you can see more information and more details about, you know, what should be in there, what type of acceleration actions are we looking for. Now the when. We are starting now to publish. So this is the link has just be published of the landing page of the acceleration action. So you are the first group that is seeing it now. So also, if you have any comments or suggestions, please let us know. So there is this web page where all the approved submissions will be featured. The most prominent, they might come up on the top of the page. Also, you will be able to see per goal, so you can track how many submissions are being shared there per goal. The thing is, several submissions, they are usually, they don't target only one goal, they have more than one. So this will be shown also on the screen. As of last Friday, we received 87 submissions. From those 40, you know, almost half, or a little bit more of 40, have been approved. This means that there is, you know, we are checking the quality. Although this is a volunteer submission, we are checking the quality and checking if it's really accelerating action. What we are noticing as well is that the pace of submissions are increasing. So before it was like slow, but now we last week we were receiving 6-10 submissions per day. So thank you for all the outreach efforts, and I'm seeing more submissions from the SDG16 community. So now what I wanted to call you to support is, when support us more with the outreach. Now you can see examples of submissions that are being approved, so you can, this also can be helpful for those that are framing submissions. We are looking for those big, impactful submissions that might be announced during the summit. If you know of those, if you're reaching out to governments and you are aware of those, you can flag to us so we can be aware. Also push them to register their submissions. The data bank, the online platform will remain open after the summit. We are aware that, for instance, some governments, they prefer to make the announcements during the summit, and then they will register. So we are aware of that. For us, technically speaking, we want to have the substance in the platform, not necessarily to have it by the day of the summit. So we, and also push colleagues to put the information there. The information will be public. This will allow you to make analysis, to follow up, to track implementation, and also for us to promote activities around the implementation. So, and just to let you know, we have been intensifying the outreach as well with member states, with the UN entities, with the resident coordinators, as well, and with major groups and other stakeholders. So I'm happy to support with any questions. Thank you again, David and colleagues.
Thank you so much for that, and it's great to hear that how that is going forward. To see SDG16 in your graph of commitments, you know, not quite in the first place, but beginning to have a stronger showing. To try and make this, you know, concrete for people from the SDG16 plus point of view, we could point to the work that's being done on justice, where there's been a group meeting every couple of weeks to talk about how to get commitments in. We expect there to be, well, there has been an op-ed in Newsweek calling for acceleration actions from ministers from Argentina, Netherlands, and Sierra Leone, and from the elders, so the co-chairs of the task force. And tomorrow they launch a video calling on all justice partners to register their acceleration actions for the summit. And we'll also make a commitment, each of the 3 countries, to registering their own national action. And I think the Dutch certainly have already done that. Similarly, I think a group of heads of state is beginning to come together around the inequality and exclusion work, and we expect a fairly high profile call to action there. So that's just some examples of how we can, we can aggregate commitments together into a way that's really, I think, going to grab attention. I have questions coming in, or requests to intervene coming in. We have the Global Partnership to End Violence Against Children and the 16+ Forum and Wafuna, and we're going to definitely make sure to come to you in the round of Q&A. And if others want to come in, please do come across, and also think about your questions to Nayara on the Acceleration Action platform. We're next going to go to Shani from the Pathfinders, who's going to talk a little bit about some of the events and the opportunities for promoting SDG 16+ in and around the summit. Shani, over to you, and then next up will be Anand.
Great, wonderful. Thanks, David, and also thank you to Nayara for the excellent summary on acceleration actions. It's hugely encouraging to see how far this has grown, particularly within the SDG 16+ community. So some key headlines on SDG 16+ and our efforts towards maximizing the opportunity to spotlight and focus on efforts around acceleration action. So 3 major headlines. On events, firstly, we are organizing 2 major events. The first event is around the SDG Action Zone. We have been in close cooperation with the SDG Strategy Hub and the SDG Action Campaign to prepare a very short event for heads of state within the SDG Action Zone that will promote and highlight leadership on acceleration action on SDG 16+. This is a key opportunity to engage for the SDG 16+ community. For those working in capitals or working with member states on the SDG 16+, please do get in touch if this could be of particular interest to you and your members. The second key event is following the event at the SDG Action Zone. We hope to do a reception at the Millennium Hotel on Tuesday, the 24th of September from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. This is the middle evening of the SDG Summit. The venue is accessible to those with and without UN passes. But in order to access this, you must get on the guest list. We cannot stress this enough. My colleague Boyan will share the Eventbrite link, so get on that list and share it across your network. In terms of how this reception would be structured, there are 3 key segments. The first segment is a head of state conversation on SDG 16+. The second segment is a social media element in partnership with the SDG Action Campaign on the butterflies, which my colleague Anand will briefly describe. And the third segment will be a platform for ministers and other high-level speakers to announce ambitious acceleration actions on SDG 16+. The reception is also an open platform for the entire SDG 16+ community to network and share across this community their efforts. There will also be stations and exhibits for those that apply on time. This is of limited opportunity. So please, again, subscribe to this event. Let us know if you are working on acceleration actions, and we'll do our best to promote them at this reception. And if you're interested in the station, do reach out. In addition, around the events, we're hoping to do, similar to the HLPF, a guide on all the SDG 16+ events. Very short and snappy. We'll probably do it online. Second key highlight includes the joint statement on SDG 16+ that we will
Hello, everyone. I think we have lost Hashani. I'm not quite sure what has happened there and exactly how much was missed. But if I can just summarize the messages. We have the action zone, so if you're from a government and you have a head of state,
I'm back. Hi, everyone. Sorry about that. Both David and I were experiencing technological difficulties. I am online. Is that right, Boyan? Okay. So quickly to summarize, Action Zone. If you have member states that are interested, this is a head of state level engagement on SDG16+ and spotlighting acceleration actions. Get in touch. Let us know. We are also working on a reception at the Millennium Hotel Tuesday, 24th September from 6 to 10 p.m. Get it in your diaries. This is invite only. So in order to actually access this reception, you need to be on that list. So please share it across your networks. We already have around 200 registered members, so please get on that list. If to quickly give the summary of the segments for that reception, the first segment will be a heads of state level conversation on SDG16+. This will be followed by a social media element in partnership with the SDG Action campaign. And then the final element will be a platform for ministers and other high-level speakers to announce acceleration actions. So if you're working on acceleration actions and want to promote this, please get in touch, let us know. One final element on the events, we're also putting together an overview of all the SDG16+ events during the SDG Summit, similar to the festival guide during the HLPF. So if you are working on events, do let us know. We're happy to promote that. Second key highlight, we're also working on the joint statement, which was a huge success at the HLPF. We have around 36 member states supporting the statement, both non-Pathfinder and Pathfinder member states. We're very keen to have more countries to sign up to the statement. So we're asking all of you, if you are working with member states who are interested in joining, this is a key opportunity to do so. And then following up on Naya on acceleration actions, we've put together a Pathfinder guidelines on acceleration actions for SDG16+, which my colleague Boyan will be sharing with you. And finally, to echo David's statement, this is the first Olympics. Let's get concentrated and focused on our opportunities for SDG16+ during the summit. There is the action zone, which we mentioned, the reception, a focus on the joint statement around member states, and a call for acceleration actions on SDG16+. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Shani, and apologies to you all for the tech mishaps, but I hope you all got that. I'm now going to hand over to Anand to talk about the work the SDG Action campaign is doing for the summit. It's been great working with Anand and his team over the past few months since the HLPF, and we're very excited about their contribution and the partnership. So Anand, over to you.
Great, thank you very much, David, and thank you to the entire Pathfinders team, and indeed this entire community, because as Naira sort of stated, a lot of us spend a lot of our time sort of strategizing and thinking about how to engage more and more communities, and it's wonderful to see such a broad brush of civil society groups and activists are really coming together around Goal 16. I'm going to talk to you very quickly about three things. One is, because we were just really focusing on the work that the SDG Action campaign are doing over UNGA. So the first one is the Global Week of Action. This is an annual week that we produce and have been running for the last, since 2015. The dates of the week are the 20th to the 30th of September. And during that time, we're encouraging activists around the world to do an SDG action and record it on our platform. So far, we've had about sort of 700 commitments made, and it can be anything from a beach cleanup to a seminar raising awareness about vulnerable communities. It's really a broad range of actions that can be recorded. And once we've mapped all of these actions, we will be presenting these back in the SDG Action Zone, which has been talked about, and I'll go into more detail about that zone later on. But we will be sort of showcasing to member states the extent of activities and activations happening around the world, around all of the goals. I just had a quick look before the call, and I think there's almost 100 of the 650 registered actions are from Goal 16 communities. So thank you so much for that. And if I could ask Boyan to post the link to our platform, it's act4sdgs.org. On there, you can go in, fill out a form, tell us what you're going to be doing, tell us where you are in the world, and obviously you would click under Goal 16, and then your action would be registered within Peace and Justice and Inclusive Society's goal. So please do go ahead and do that. Secondly, as David has referenced, and I'm really glad that Naira sort of went first, in addition to the great work that DESA is doing in capturing these institutional style commitments with really clear accountability networks and funding, etc., we have also, our team has come up with a platform for individuals to make more sort of light touch activations and commitments for behavioral change, working with the Act Now campaign, which is specifically on climate action, but really looking at all of the SDGs and asking individuals to make small commitments in their day-to-day life. So, for example, some people are committing to walk to work for the next month, or to use a glass water bottle, or to stand up for communities that don't have a voice. So we've set up something called the Sdg Butterfly Effect, and I'm just going to post the link now on this chat, and hopefully Boyan can send it all to you. It's basically a augmented reality campaign for individual action. So asking individuals to go on the platform, make a small commitment on change that they're going to make in their day-to-day life. And in return, they earn these beautiful augmented reality butterfly wings, which we're encouraging people to post online, tagging the person that's going to hold them accountable for their action. And we're doing this in partnership with Facebook and Instagram and a lot of the big sort of social media platforms. We've also got a big offline component to this campaign, so it's not just digital. And we've got these cutouts of these SDG butterflies that are being run in schools and communities, competitions for children. We've got a cities challenge about to be launched where cities will compete to see who can actually host a mural of one of these butterflies. So there's going to be sort of more and more work being done on this campaign, which is being launched on the 22nd of September. The Peace and Justice Wing, actually, we're close to finalizing the unveiling of that at the Peace Day celebrations in London, marking the 20th anniversary of Peace Day, working with the Peace One Day community here in the UK. But really, once this campaign launches on the 22nd of September, for the rest of the year, we will be doing activations every month on each of the goals. So we'll be back in touch with you, talking about when we're going to be activating the SDG16 plus community. So that's the second thing I want to talk about. And the last is the SDG Action Zone. And just sort of due to logistics, etc., not that much is in the public domain. So you may not have seen as much around it. But in effect, the SDG Action Zone, it's a dedicated event space, which will be in the Rose Garden of the UN, running throughout the high-level week at the UN General Assembly. The idea is for it to sort of bring in new stakeholders, civil society coalitions, activists, and provide a space that hasn't really been there at the UN ever before, to host events, to engage in discussions with communities that aren't necessarily always part of the official delegations that come to the UN General Assembly. So it's in effect a physical manifestation of the SDGs. We're looking at making it sort of very dynamic and creative. Our team were part of the group that actually went and met Greta Thunberg as she arrived in New York with the 17 sailboats, and we're looking to carry on that sort of dynamism into the space and really provide as much opportunity as we can for lightning talks, for discussions, for networking events, for an exhibition area where different activations that civil society are doing can showcase. So really, we're really looking to this space to be a almost sort of mini UN General Assembly running concurrently, but sort of done in a very sort of open, accountable, and transparent way. And I posted the link, or I will post the link, which will have the official program, which will be out in the next couple of days. And hopefully Pathfinders will actually have a presence as part of the programming for the Action Zone. So yeah, these are the three key things that I want to say. I think I can leave it there, David, and then just be open to questions. So thank you very much.
Great, brilliant, and I think it's a really good package. These three areas. One of Anand's colleagues presented the butterfly campaign at the lunch for PRs last week, and it met with a very, very positive reception. And I think the more that we can do to use the reception and featuring the butterfly, the SDG16 butterfly in that reception, and then trying to get some of the key leaders and opinion formers at the summit to be associated with the wings, I think that will really help with our broader mobilization. Because after all, a lot of this is about the mobilization, about the advocacy, about the communications, about getting this out of New York into a bigger conversation. And I'm really glad that we have Sinead Andrews on the call, on via phone. She's Senior Advisor Communications and Partnerships at the UN, and she's also working closely with USG Fabrizio Horschild on the preparations for the 75th anniversary of the UN, which is going to work throughout this coming year and culminate in September 2020. So Sinead, I hope you can hear us fine, and over to you.
Yes, I can. Can you hear me okay?
Absolutely great.
Perfect. Okay. And thank you so much for asking our team, and apologies for having to dial in late. I heard Anand, and I'm very excited about the work that they're doing, and I'm looking forward to seeing how that all rolls out. Our work, as David says, is about next year, but it is very relevant to peace and justice. As David says, the SG has appointed the Undersecretary General Fabrizio Hochschild to commemorate the 75th anniversary next year, and we want it to be a little different. I liked the last sentence there, out of New York to a bigger conversation, because that's essentially what we need to do. We're looking to tackle, essentially it's a series of global conversations across all regions and across many sectors, and also to invite new audiences, people who wouldn't necessarily even know what the UN does, who the UN are, or they may not necessarily care, or they may be disengaged, or misinformed, or disenfranchised, or disinterested. So it's to make the UN a more accessible entity to the world's population. And we would, while we don't want to over-prescribe what the dialogues would focus on, we see obviously the global issues that come up repeatedly: climate crisis, poverty, inequality, protracted conflict, migration, displacement, rapid changes in demography, the disruptive effects of technology. So, you know, these all have they could have serious implications for the generations behind us, and failure to look at this will have far-reaching consequences for, I guess, the next generation, but also the planet itself. Not to be overly bleak, and this conversation, maybe this has already been addressed, but so to land this whole thing, obviously there will be, for UN 75, we will have somewhere to point to. We'll have a website. There'll be toolkits which will help, no matter if it's in a school, in a village hall, a classroom, a boardroom, a parliament. You can go onto the website and download any tools that would be helpful to run these dialogues. We'll propose certain framing questions to help the dialogues run. And the other important part is with the data that comes out of those various different conversations, we would like to be able to see, to distill the data and present it back to the Secretary General and say, look, this is what people are saying around the world. These are the issues that are important to this. While we want to engage everybody, civil society and youth are obviously a very important partner to us, and we would envision that they'd be key drivers of the dialogues. So I just go to this other Yeah, so I mean, what would success look like? And that comes up for us. I suppose two questions that have been coming our way are, how does this complement and work with the SDGs, and what actually would success look like? So in terms of success, it means increased, as I said, increased engagement in the world's population, working together to influence the decision makers who have a major part in people's future. People we hope would better understand the risks involved if global cooperation doesn't happen. So some of the questions would be, you know, what if countries didn't work together? What if what would your future look like without X, Y, Z? But we'll also have some very positive questions as well. We also want an explainer video. We have them, but we want to update them to say a very simple guide to the UN system-wide, and obviously the SDGs will feature very highly there. But the dialogues, we're engaging some interesting organizations who have done a lot of work on distilling information and taking data from dialogues, global dialogues, and hopefully we'll be able to distill all that and have them contribute towards a catalogue of innovative solutions for the UN SDG to present to governments and other influential stakeholders. Yeah, I mean, I leave it there. As I say, it was a little bit a last minute for me to join this, so I'm not as prepared as I would have liked to have been, but maybe I'll just leave it at that, and if there's any further questions, I can take them.
Brilliant, thank you so much, and I'm so glad that you were able to come and join us. And I think, you know, we're really beginning to see this focus on acceleration actions, the SDG Summit, the Decade of Action, and then this global conversation on how we meet the promises of the SDGs, and how the SDG 16+ community can make that very tangible in terms of what we do to build peace and for more effective prevention, what we do on justice, what we do on governance and institutions, what we do on inequality and exclusion. I've got a couple of people who want...
Please do partner with us, so just to add that piece.
Brilliant, brilliant. So we really look forward to working with you closely on this. We have a couple of people in line to come in, and if you do want to make an intervention, do put your hand up, get in touch with Boyan in any way, get our attention. But I'm first going to go to Wendy, who is from the Global Partnership to End Violence Against Children, and who's been a great partner in trying to really make sure that we highlight SDG 16.2 and all the other targets for ending violence against children, and focus on the very concrete agenda for action that is coming out of work on those targets. Wendy.
Thanks so much, David. And I'll be brief, mostly just to say that we are really looking forward to supporting existing efforts for this UNGA. I think you all have done such impressive work. It's been great working with Harshani and your team and the community overall. I think we're going with less is more for this UNGA. So rather than creating more events, we're really looking forward to getting behind what you're doing, especially on the 24th with the Action Zone. And then, of course, also on the 25th, looking at getting ready for CRC 30. In fact, really trying to get our messaging and a lot of the coordination now around the November celebration as well. So really just a thanks for being such an important leader for this UNGA, and we look forward to supporting the work of all of our partners. Thanks.
That's great, and thank you for coming in. There was a little retreat on Friday looking at where next on violence against children. We have, I think, in this area, fantastic leadership from the Special Representative, the Secretary General on ending violence against children. As you said, the 30th anniversary of the Convention on the Rights of the Child is coming up in November, and then I think a real opportunity to focus on practical actions for children. And I'm not sure whether we know when this is going to happen yet, but I gather a second Solutions Summit on violence against children is in the offing. So there's really a lot going on in this area, and we hope that it can be very central during the summit. So Nick, over to you. I know that we have another forum, a 16+ forum or showcase coming up in Timor-Leste, and that's something that we can really plug into this global conversation on the 75th anniversary, and we can begin to build on the momentum of the SDG Summit as we work for a decade of action. Nick.
Yes, absolutely, and thank you very much, David, and Harshani, Nayara, everyone that's been on this very important call and discussing everything going forward from HLPF and through the summit. I think just quickly to echo what was just said, we are similarly going to, we're taking the approach of less is more during UNGA. So not organizing any events, but very much looking forward to supporting all the number of great events that are being organized and that will take place over the next couple of weeks. But yes, with regards to the 16 Plus Forum and the showcase, as David kindly mentioned, we are in the process of organizing the third showcase that will take place this year in Dili, Timor-Leste, from the 11th to the 14th of November. Everybody is obviously more than welcome to join us in Dili. I know it's a bit far, but we're very much looking forward to seeing everybody there. Hopefully you will have all received the save the date, and invites will be coming shortly. But it really is both a follow-up from HLPF and from the summit, as well as kind of looking forward to next year, into the next 4-year cycle, as David mentioned earlier, into the 75th anniversary next year. So agenda will very much be in line with everything that has been discussed, and kind of looking forward. I don't want to take up too much time, as I know that there are people, other people that would like to speak. But if you do have any questions, please feel free to reach out to either myself or to my colleague Margaret Williams. I can add both of our emails to the chat box now. So if you have any questions, just please feel free to contact us. And thank you again, David, for giving me the time to speak.
Great, thank you. Maybe not everybody on the call has been to one of the previous showcases, but I think it is clear that this is emerging as the global gathering for people working to showcase action on SDG 16, 16 plus, and the fact that we've had one in Europe, one in Africa, and now the forum is going to Asia for the first time, I think is really significant. I think a number of the key the key countries in the region, not just Timor, but other countries in the region, are really behind this forum. They want to use it as an opportunity to accelerate action for SDG 16 plus in the region and globally. And I would really urge all partners to support this event in any way that they can. We also hope that somebody senior from the government will use the event in the Millennium Hotel on the Tuesday of the SDG Summit to announce, or not to announce for the first time, but to highlight the fact that the forum is coming up, and really to underline this invitation and this call to action. We're beginning to run towards the end of our time here. I don't see any hands up at the moment, but if you want to come in, do just barge in now and just start speaking. Just introduce yourself and start speaking. Otherwise, I'm going to move towards a summary and some closing reflections. So, as they say, speak now or forever hold your peace. I think Owen wants to come in. Owen Wall, I've mentioned his question earlier, but it'd be great to hear about some of this focus on violence prevention. Owen, over to you.
Really looking for what will after the summit. I think I have 2 or 3 quick questions. One is in relation to Latin America and the Caribbean. There's been no mention of something happening there, and it seems to me the Inter-American Bank and the World Bank are very interested in the prevention of violence issue. The second point is next year the UN Office on Drugs and Crime has its 5-yearly meeting focused on the SDGs at the end of April in Tokyo, and I think this is an incredible opportunity. A third is that I see a number of the city organizations in European Forum for Urban Safety, for instance, and also the prevention people in Germany getting increasingly interested. So my question is really how we can build on the summit to share more of what works, to get more cities doing things. I haven't heard much mention of cities. And I'm, as you know, very interested in the compelling arguments to get decision makers to invest.
Great. So great to hear from you. And just a couple of small questions for us to tackle there. I think there is strong engagement from Latin America, not just on violence prevention, but also on justice. And Argentina has been a real leader on this issue, and we hope that will continue. We've also very keen to highlight the work that the campaign to halve lethal violence in Latin America is doing, and the many cities there that are taking this work forward. We and a number of partners, I think, see this as a real opportunity to pick up on SDG 16.1 after the summit. There's going to be a big push to look at what it would take to halve global violence in the follow-up from the summit, and we will be reaching out to all partners on that work. And I think there's a number of actors who are increasingly excited about trying to position that as similar to halving poverty in the MDG era. So if you look at the violence scenarios that we have, we project these are scenarios are fairly fairly speculative, but we project a small increase in lethal violence by 2030 from a 2015 baseline. And the aspiration is to significantly reduce all forms of violence everywhere. So I think an essential part of the global conversation that we're hearing about around the 75th anniversary is how we get serious about that prevention work, and how we do it across conflict, urban violence, interpersonal violence, human rights abuses, etc., etc. So I think that is a big area of focus for the time coming up. We have, just after the summit, a group of countries working on the exclusion and inequality work coming together at ministerial level in Mexico in the margins of a meeting on social protection. So that will bring that in, and we also have the justice work to look out to. I'm going to just briefly give a chance for Bojan to come in and brief a little bit on some of the thinking around cities and the SDG Summit and the year that follows.
Hi, everyone. This is Bojan from the Pathfinders team. Thank you, Urban, for raising the question about cities. As David mentioned, one of the things that we're working with several peace-building organizations out in the West Coast is launching this new Peace in Our Cities campaign, where we're looking to get 5 to 8 mayors from across the world committed to the exploratory committee, where we're going to be looking at some of the best practices on violence reduction and prevention in cities across the world. So we're looking to unroll this this September as part of the broader efforts that David was speaking about on halving global violence by 2030. And I'll make sure that we share more information about this campaign in the follow-up email to this call. Brilliant.
No. Oh, sorry. Did we lose all of that?
Yeah.
Sorry, I think we had another technical hitch, but we're back on now. I'm just saying we've got a minute left of this call. I hope you didn't miss any of the responses there. But just to repeat some of the key messages and summarize, HOPF gives us a platform for accelerating action. Please, if you've got any ability as your own organization or as a network or as an influencer of governments, ask them to register acceleration actions within the DESA registry, preferably before the summit, but equally in the year that follows. Opportunities for bringing acceleration actions to the summit and announcing them at various events, including the reception on the Tuesday night. If you want a station at that event, or if there are high-profile speakers who can come and make commitments to deliver change, please be in touch with us on that. The beginning of a global conversation that rolls out of that, going through events like the 16 Plus Forum, events on violence against children, events on justice, etc., through the year that can contribute to the 75th anniversary and can really focus us on actions to close the gap between our aspirations on peace, justice, and inclusion and current realities. And then positioning this very much as part of a decade of action on the SDGs, so that when the Secretary General calls for this decade of action, we're ready as a community to stand up and say, yes, we're here, yes, we're ready, and yes, we can take the practical actions to build peace, to build justice, to build an inclusion in a world where those are so urgently needed. There's been a huge amount of information on this call. A lot of links have gone up in the chat, but we're going to make sure that the video and all of the key outputs from this call, including the briefing on acceleration actions, the briefing on the leaders' dialogues, etc., goes out to you all. And keep in touch with us. We do have a WhatsApp group to talk about how we can work together on SDG 16 Plus. Join that group or bombard us with or bombard Bojan preferably with emails, and let's really work together to seize this opportunity. So I'd like to close by thanking our speakers, thanking Naira, Harshani, and Sinead, and thank you all for joining, and we look forward to working with you over the coming weeks. Just final point, at the very last minute, we were unable to get Jimena from IPI, who was supposed to be moderating this event, but they remain an absolutely critical partner for this work, and we should we're sure that they will be on the next call. So thank you very much, and look forward to talking to you all again soon.